Beardy and the Beast Media Club.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. This is placeholder intro song.
Welcome to the Beardy and the Beast Media Club, a media discussion where we enjoy any and all spoilers. Unlike some forest spirits, we'll keep our head when the plot is revealed. We are available here and on many other services with a full list available at beardyandthebeast.com. Give us a share, a like, but most importantly, join the discussion in the comments. My name is Drew, and with us, of course, is our very own Mononoke Hime, Devon.
I am the prettiest princess.
Today we'll be discussing the English release of 1997's Studio Ghibli's tale, Princess Mononoke. So, Devon, was this film a wolf or did you find it a bore?
I, oh, I think much like the movie, it treads the line. I enjoy this movie. I think I could see some people seeing it going a bit long, but I don't get that impression. Apparently, that's something that they actually, like Miyazaki actually said at like one of the film festivals.
Mm.
Like, he knew what he was doing.
You remember he
So,
said something about like throwing away some forms of traditional storytelling
mhm.
and then ended up with like a 2 hour some odd long movie, which is, I mean, standard fare nowadays.
Well, I believe this was the longest animated movie until Princess Kaguya.
Hmm.
I think Princess Kaguya is like a couple minutes longer than this one, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I think I remember you saying that
Yeah,
we are discussing Princess Kaguya.
yeah.
Uh, it didn't feel long at all to
No,
me.
not at all. Yeah.
I mean, it certainly felt incoherent in places with random plot points just sticking in there for no reason, but overall, pretty all right.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'm going to jump on that hook right away. Random plot points, you say?
Random Oh, we're gonna go
Yeah.
there right now.
I don't know. It's there. It's something I could easily see us forgetting. So I'm just kind of curious what you were seeing for that.
So the romance subplot. Thanks
All right.
Studio Ghibli out of nowhere and having no bearing on anything.
Mm, I don't know if I complete because
It's like, oh, I know that Ashitaka loves you. Oh, I know, I hate him anyways. I'm like, what? He saw you twice. He said 3 words to you.
I mean, if you think about the Disney princesses, all it took was a kiss while they were sleeping.
Yeah, but that's just some like weird, creepy and weird Disney thing that I mean, I don't know why the Disney princesses would end up marrying them. They're all like creepy and weird and liars.
It's called They Got the Money in the Palace.
That's true.
So interesting thing with that romantic subplot. I actually just read this. I know I just said this off camera that probably not going to come up, but it is. So Kaya is apparently Ashitaka's betrothed, and she was the person who voiced her in the Japanese version also voiced San, Kaya and San.
Oh, weird.
Yeah,
That's a weird little tidbit. I just
yeah.
I just find it weird that like they even threw in an Ashitaka X Sen romance subplot into this because it didn't seem applicable or relevant to anything in the film, nor was there any
So
development of it. So that's why I'm kind of like just a random plot point that why.
yeah,
It's like, oh, the prince was the scarecrow the entire time. It's like this. There, nothing about this movie had anything to do with a prince.
he was a prince.
Oh no, I was talking about Hal's.
Yeah, I know, I know.
It's just that
Um,
it's that Ghibli thing that I just
yeah.
dislike so much. It's just like this random thing about it that doesn't seem.
Well, I mean, some of that again, I do wonder sometimes again if there's cultural aspects that are there.
Mm,
This being like Ghibli's only period piece can also affect, like, or one of their only period pieces
well, it
could
being
affect
a
that.
Well, they being a period piece makes the whole like Ashitaka Kaya bit make more sense on the Japanese side of things.
Yeah.
Where you were saying off recording that they were actually fiancés, that they had that form of would seem like even like a prearranged relationship or something along those lines.
Mm.
Whereas of course in the English version, his sister, which I guess I mean that changed not super relevant
Yeah.
to the film. Like it seemed to be the same thing anyways.
Yeah. And I wonder if that romance subplot you talk about, I don't, maybe it's not so much a, maybe it wasn't necessarily meant to be a subplot, but more to again show the characterization. So when you've got such a gray world, like morality wise, this entire film is
Mm.
very gray. You know, he Ashtaka comes in, like even without saying anything. I mean, the god says, yeah, no, he would have dropped everything for you. I think it's just kind of shows that. I think some of the overall themes and ideas of it be kind of again that merging of the human and the spirit worlds in a way
Mm.
with two of the human characters. So it doesn't. So I think it's more that. At least that's how what I got out of it. As opposed to, as you said, it's not exactly a plot that's developed anywhere. I mean, they don't get together, but at the end either or anything like that. So
I mean, it's just the
yeah,
movie would have stood the exact same without it. So
yeah,
how relevant was it to the story at all?
yeah. No, and
Is
that's
it's kind of a thought. Mind you, if you removed it, it wouldn't make the movie any shorter. Not that it needed to be.
yeah, yeah.
So I guess with that, we kind of like talked a little bit here about like the Japanese versus the English versions already.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you had to ask me originally when this film came up on the list, which version should we watch?
Yeah.
Either the original Japanese or the English version. And I hadn't seen the English version. I know it has like this star-studded cast,
Mhm.
and was kind of like that was one of its big selling points to the American market, that it had people like Gillian Anderson, Jada Pinkett Smith, Billy Bob Thornton, etc.
Yeah.
Uh, so I was like, yeah, hey, English version, we'll do it. And I guess I'm as unimpressed as watching any dub. I'm not a super purist by any means. The reason why I like the subtitled and Japanese original versions of Japanese animated stuff compared to the English dubs is because the voices and the tones and the inflections and the emotions come through better in the Japanese version.
I wouldn't use the word better myself. I'd say you can get complete different characterization. I think of like Nier Automata, the character to be the English version and the Japanese version make her seem like completely different characters.
Mm, I think that's
Right.
a good point, but I also think when I watch something that was originally done in English,
Hmm.
the emotions that the characters are portraying seem to come through better
Mm.
than like a potential dub in a different language.
Yeah.
So I think just recasting, it was kind of clear to me for this film that the recasting of voices were more done based on name recognition. I almost feel like they didn't go with the voice actors and actresses that would have suited the characters the best.
So it's interesting because I come at this the opposite way. I haven't actually watched. I don't think I've watched the Japanese version.
Mm,
So,
Ethan.
or I may have like ages ago, but I've
Yeah, mind
generally
you,
watched
like,
it one.
yeah, I haven't watched this movie in like 20 years.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, I know this was like a big thing for Ghibli. I think this is like the start of like the Disney Ghibli partnership and such. I think.
Yeah, the
I think.
Jubileeverse started with the success of
Yeah.
this film.
Yeah.
Especially the English release. Like that name power definitely helped extend the career.
Yeah.
Was it?
Exactly.
Yeah, Miyazaki, and it definitely put a bunch of money into the coffers of Studio Ghibli and made it so we got to experience wonderful things like
Yeah.
the Tale of Princess Kaguya.
Yeah. For sure. It's interesting because they did want to try to Disneyfy it, and Miyazaki's like, nope.
Oh, I saw a thing about this. They wanted to like recut it and cut it down, and
Yeah,
Miyazaki sent a katana with no cuts engraved to the production office.
yeah,
and,
yeah. Because he was
and
so disappointed what was done with Nausicaa, which is funny because I vaguely remember like, this must be obviously it's the Mandela effect, but I remember seeing something about Lasseter, John Lasseter being the one fighting to keep it the same, but I could not re-find that information
hmm,
anywhere. So now I'm not sure where I got that from, but I'd always had it in my head that John Lasseter was someone who fought to not change it.
it well, I mean,
Oh,
it could have been a different film in the line.
yeah, it might have been. It might have been Spirited Away, actually.
Spirited Away, Kiki's,
Yeah, yeah,
Howl's, even.
yeah, that's true. But I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't confirm that. It was something I thought I saw. It's interesting though. You talk about the voice acting for that because this is one of. It's generally touted as one of the best dubs, and the dub was so well received that they re-released the movie in Japan with the English voice actors and Japanese subtitles.
I mean, sure, in '97.
Yeah,
I mean, I get that.
yeah,
Just it. I don't know. I didn't watch the dub originally, and I don't think it held up.
yeah. That's fair.
It's something that would have probably blown my mind in '97, and had I seen it, I would have been very disappointed now, instead of
Yeah.
just, madly disappointed sitting here going like, I should have set the Japanese version, just hyper nerd
That's
on it.
fair.
Yeah, I that being said, like I did enjoy revisiting the story, and all the plot points that I had completely forgot. It wasn't so much so like some of the other movies where I hadn't seen this movie in a long time and it was like I was watching it for the first time again.
Yeah,
This was more, I knew a bunch of stuff that happened and I was either reminded or I had that sense of deja vu because I had seen it before.
yeah. Oh, that makes sense. And I don't know. It's one of those things. Ghibli does it in general very well. It's like they could again. It's just that like we talked about this a bit with Kaguya. It's just that fairy tale
Mm,
aspect of the films, right? That can leave that lasting impression. You said you can go a decade without watching it, but you're not losing it when you go back and
mm.
watch it. So
Though disappointed with like that sound aspect of this, the animation quality for something that's what 24 years old now, top notch
yeah.
still, top
Hmm.
notch still. If it was smoother frame rate wise,
Yeah.
it would be even better than stuff coming out nowadays.
Yeah. There are some interesting things that I saw about the animation for this as well.
Hmm.
Apparently this was going to be Miyazaki's last film originally. And, of course, he came back and did Spirited Away and a bunch of other ones afterwards. But apparently he, like, either drew or touched up about half the frames in it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like 80,000 out of 144,000 or something like that.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. And apparently it was the last animated film done on like the old like plastic
Oh, the cells.
animation, yeah, plastic animated cells, which is really cool random factoids.
Yeah, like nowadays they definitely at least improved on the expediency of the process.
Hmm.
I mean, there's definitely good looking stuff that comes out nowadays, but just to throw like a random thing in, if this wasn't done by Ghibli, if it was done from a different studio, the demon animals, I
Yeah,
bet you instead of that being animated, it'd be like
weird
computer
effect.
generated, like 3D animated on to the characters. So it
Yeah,
would be that weird like focus breaking thing where you're on a obviously 2D background, but it's like a 3D sprite.
yeah,
Like I could see them doing that.
yeah. I could, I could easily see that too.
Yeah. And
Uh,
I noticed that when the boar originally comes in and it had the demon snail snake things covering it, I'm not even sure what those would be called, but the the infection, I guess.
Yeah,
This is my first thought. I had was if they did this nowadays, that would be 3D, and I'd be upset.
Yep. And to
Unless
have
they,
that like the first scene would just I could see that throwing you right out, yeah.
yeah, just pull you right out of it. And it's not even that infection was super high quality. In fact, those moving things individually on them seemed low quality animation compared to the rest of the film.
Mhm.
But stylistically, I don't think they could have done it any other way.
Yeah.
Like it had to be different than the environment.
Well, yeah, I think it being different than the environment like that too, it just goes and shows said the infection, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it stands out without being the, oh God, why'd you do this in CG? So, um, so I just kind of want to finish up just on like the voice acting and translations and such like that here a little bit. So, what did you notice anything different with like the or you might not even remember enough with like just the way the story was done the Japanese versus the English or
No, I couldn't. It's been long enough that I couldn't compare them.
yeah.
So there is always that potential that, like, the story itself doesn't hold up, but
Mm,
uh, I am giving Ghibli, even though it's love-hate relationship I have with them, that it does, and it's this release that's a problem for me.
yeah.
I'm kind of giving them that benefit of the doubt.
Mm. 'Cause I know Neil Gaiman apparently is the one who did the translation, and
Yeah,
apparently like
the rewrite and
yeah,
reconfigure, I guess, would be the best way.
yeah,
Adaptation there,
yeah.
which that was kind of interesting. I saw something where Tarantino was originally approached and went no, but referred them to Neil Gaiman, which
Mhm.
is probably for the best.
Yep, that's what I
I
was
think
gonna
this
say.
was be a very different story if it was Tarantino's flippin' Princess Mononoke. Just
Yeah.
like 3 minutes of Princess Mononoke, or I guess San, feet shots.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. Like the little bits to know, like Neil Gaiman would be exactly who I would want to do an English version of any Ghibli film because it's his wheelhouse. He's very much those fairy tale ish
Mm,
style writing, right? Like you think of Sandman or Stardust or Mirror Mask, any of those things, American Gods, right? He's very much,
yeah,
you
like
know,
the oddball fairy tales, but aren't grim
yeah,
or their own thing.
yeah. And apparently, like the only changes he made was like little things to make localization a little bit easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like calling the forest spirits, or calling them gods instead of kami, right? Because there's slight, like calling them gods and demons versus, I can't remember the Japanese version, but they're much more similar words. It's like god and cursed god,
Mm,
right? Right. So those were the types of localizations he did, trying to keep it as similar as is. And I think there was like a little bit of narration that was added. I know it's just because I forgot to turn up the subtitles when I first turned it on when I first started watching it. It was like there was subtitle or there was narration right at the beginning, but it was talking about, here's the forest spirits and such like this, which I think actually again kind of goes back to that Kaguya discussion that we talked about previously, where it needed to give that little bit of cultural information.
mm.
We're kind of familiar with that idea, but I could see the general audience, which especially the wanted to have this for, not having a clue about the forest spirits and all that stuff.
You can definitely the localization and the adaptation itself was done very well. The
Yeah.
story as an individual would hold up for all audiences over here,
Hmm.
and that's
Yeah.
probably why it did well.
Yeah.
But it's something about the character voice choices to me.
You
Only
know,
only really like I would say maybe Akodo, that's Keith David, Lady Eboshi, Minnie Driver, and then who's it? Moro, Gillian Anderson
Mhm.
seem to be right to me, like seem to match the characters in the feel. And two of those aren't even human.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. What about Gonzo the monk?
Monk,
Or is it the monk?
I
No, sorry, not the
liked.
monk. The guard. I meant Iboshi's guard, the captain.
Oh, the captain.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Hmm.
I don't know. Those type of characters always kind of throw away to me. They always take me out of it, no matter where they are. I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay, kind of like the bumbling tropey character. There's always one of
Yeah.
these. I just kind of ignore them.
Yeah.
I guess projected well.
Yeah.
The adaptation of that, they probably chose the right person for it.
Yeah.
But even then, not an important character by any means.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's interesting because just looking at the list here in like the first 10 of the characters to see, I only see three voice actors in there, and one of them was Kaya and additional voices. So, not exactly many lines,
Hmm.
right? Like the only voice actors that I see in here that are known for voice acting is John DiMaggio, which was the guard,
Hmm.
and Keith David.
Well, it's probably why John DiMaggio and Keith David didn't pull me out
Yeah.
because they were portraying it right. That's probably why I didn't even notice DiMaggio.
Yeah.
I didn't trigger that thing in my head that went, no, that's not right.
Yeah.
But I mean, Sen and Ashitaka just no.
Shitaka I didn't like so much. I didn't have the same issue with San,
I I
but I
give
could see where you get that from.
yeah. It has nothing to do with the actress. I just don't think the tone of the voice felt right for the character. And it might have been a directing thing, like the way that they were asking her to deliver the lines.
Yeah.
The delivery just didn't seem right to me. But I mean, just Ashitaka was
Yeah.
just
Yeah, I wasn't as big a fan with his voice acting either. I think I don't know. I This is something that I always wonder about. 'Cause we kind of talked about this. Like generally, we do try to watch it in the original form. This
mhm.
was one of the odd ones that I knew we could go either way with. So I always wonder how much of the voice acting stuff would be different if, because as I understand it, in Japan, when they do their voice acting, they do it more like table reads and stage reads. So everyone is in the booth
Mm.
recording. So you get the opportunity to play off of each other.
Yeah.
And that is very much not the case over here. So I always wonder if just the difference in how voice recording is done, if that would change change how the stuff feels, right? Make
I don't
things feel a
know.
little more natural and such like that.
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
you look at stuff. Take Avatar for example.
Mhm.
Like originally done in English,
Yeah,
and the characters match. They feel like they're playing off each other.
yeah,
Whereas we're looking at this, and something about it just doesn't feel right.
mm,
Something about it feels off. I'm just wondering, like, what the focus was. I might be able to figure it out by the time our discussion's over. I might not, and it might be something I have to be pondered, and it
yeah,
might be something I'll get actually at like a meet and greet or something. But
yeah.
I just I think I think you might have your finger on it.
Mhm.
This one definitely would have benefited from a more collaborative recording sessions.
Yeah. There's one other possibility because we both kind of said this. Both of us weren't Kudrip's Ashtaka. There's something more in particular off with him,
Hmm.
and really, we don't really ever see many of the other characters interact with each other, and the ones that we do see interact with each other with others, you also said you liked, so like Keith David and Gillian Anderson. So I'm wondering if it's something with just Kudrip, or
Oh,
just something with him, right? Just a theory, just a thought, right?
I kind of like where you're going with that because I didn't mind the character even though the character was every 30 seconds. My name is Ashitaka, and I plead to you, God. 30 seconds ago, you were pleading to that other god, or you were begging that other god for something. And it's like, uh, I didn't mind the character though, but there was just
Yeah.
something off about it. And
Yeah. Actually, yeah, no, that's interesting. I kind of like. I'm kind of going to play off that pleading aspect that's there. Like, I understand that he's kind of stuck in the middle of everything that's happening. Like, in my mind, there's no good guys or bad guys in this film.
hmm,
It's it's just differing ideologies. No one's listening to each other, and stuff keeps escalating. And you just have him saying the same thing to all of these people, trying to just be that middle line, and just comes that little bit repetitive. So when you see,
but it's the tone. Like I didn't see the emotion in the delivery.
yeah, yeah, and if you're missing that when you're trying to be that middle line, it's not gonna have the same impact, and I could see that throwing it off a little bit.
Hmm. I'll definitely have to think about it
Yeah.
because I've seen him in other stuff before, and it didn't bother me. So it must have just been this project.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, the only scenes that I really felt that the delivery seemed good is when he went to help the iron workers, the girls with the air pump,
Yeah.
and at the beginning when talking to Kaya.
Yeah.
Like those seemed to be on point, but then the rest was the exact same intensity
Hmm.
and the exact same tones, like highs
Yeah.
throughout the entire movie. And I was just like, So it might have been something that was pulling me up.
Yeah.
So
I think apparently Leonardo DiCaprio could have possibly been him instead.
yeah, I don't know if
I'm
I.
not sure.
I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
It's it's just not a part that I see him in,
Yeah.
but I'm sure he'd do fine.
Yeah.
I don't mind him as an actor. Like he does a good job usually. So
Yeah.
um, it's probably a crime that he was snubbed so many times.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fine. As far as the actors and actresses go, I don't really have much more to say. Now, you mentioned that, like, the characters just weren't listening to each other, which, of
Mhm.
course, was true. They definitely understood the motivations of each other, but because of their position, they had to continue acting and escalating in the same way that they were.
Yeah.
Um, this doesn't hit the this is how I live now feeling that I've complained about in the past, where the entire plot could have been ended just by two characters like actually having a conversation.
Yeah.
Because in this movie, even if they had a conversation, they still would have had to continue going in that same direction.
Yeah. It was. It's because it wasn't just. Probably going to do a lot of Kaguya references in this here. So
Yeah,
we're going with this. Um, so, like in Kaguya, if the father and Kaguya actually sat down and talked, he might have gone like, "Oh, this isn't what's making you happy. Let's change this."
yeah,
Where, right, where it was very much a, "I think I'm doing what's right," and he thinks he knows what he's doing is right, and never bothered to check.
yeah. And then
Whereas,
yeah, and
right,
on her side, she was experiencing that sorrow, but wouldn't say anything, which would have
yeah,
changed the mind completely. It's like
yeah,
that kind of two-edged sword.
yeah. Whereas this one here is very much San and Morrow, what they're doing is right and what they need to do to protect the forest, but what Eboshi is doing is also right and what she needs to do to protect her people and right.
What the
So
Boers are doing are, to protect their people and their kind.
yeah, yeah, it's no one was wrong. No one was the only character that in the entire thing that I saw as wrong, and that's very much in air quotes, was Jigo, the monk,
Well,
right?
was he
Where
even a monk, or was he just
I,
pretending to
I,
be?
the monk-like character. Let's go with that. he he was the only one who I could, in any way, shape, or form, call the villainous, and that's because he wasn't doing it for what was right or anything. That he was literally doing it for, I want the monies.
Well, I mean,
right?
technically, as a plot, I would definitely say he was the villain of the film,
Yeah,
orchestrating the samurais against Eboshi to force Eboshi's hand to help hunt the forest
yeah,
spirit. It's just his cheerful demeanor for the most part kind of
yeah,
throws you off a bit, but
yeah,
and the fact that he was kind of like goofy looking and whatnot.
yeah. Kind of started out with being pretty helpful to Ashitaka.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, he'd be the only one that I would consider a villain, but you don't really have enough interaction for him to be a villain,
Hmm.
which I think is actually good, right? Yeah, sure, he was the manipulator, but his story wasn't directly important,
Well,
right?
he was that pinch of salt,
Yeah, catalyst.
enhancing, yeah, the flavor of the little bits of cycles of hate and cycles of conflict within the film.
Yeah.
So everything he did would push it that little bit further and help escalate it a little bit more, purely for his own needs.
Yeah.
To have essentially playing everyone as an antagonist to each other when
Hmm.
he himself was the true villain.
Yeah.
The like Lady Eboshi, you find out, liberated the brothel girls, was taking care of the lepers, had revitalized that town that was being choked by the boar spirits. There was a whole lot of altruism there. I mean, I don't appreciate the deforestation. She definitely went a bit far, but that's my own morality bit projected onto that.
Yeah.
I definitely don't see her as a villain, but from her point of view, those boars that won't let them, get the iron so that they can sell the iron so that they can feed themselves would be an antagonist to her.
Yeah.
So she would have to eliminate that threat to her people.
Yeah. And the movie does really well at that. It's like you can tell, like exactly why San and Eboshi and the boars and the apes and see very clearly why they're all in this, romance of the three kingdoms type
Yeah,
type battle. But you can't side with any of them. I mean, even we were talking about the deforestation. Like I don't think it didn't come across to me that her motivation was for deforestation. It was we need to keep doing this or we're not going to be able to defend ourselves.
yeah.
Right?
Well,
Like it
and
wasn't
it was like two hillsides. It's not like the
yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah.
They, I mean, the most straight forward motivations definitely came from like San and Moro, which is legitimately just protect the forest and the forest spirit.
So it's interesting to say that because I agree with that being San's motivation, but not necessarily Moro's.
Well, it was just like it
Because
was a line that was said like that's what we're doing here.
yeah,
If like I'll have you expand on the thought you're having right now, but yeah, it was just something that they said like that's why we're here and that's what we're doing.
yeah, that's fair. Because I was gonna say like San definitely it's all about just protecting the forest.
Yeah.
Moro I felt was more nuanced with it because if that's what it was, then she wouldn't have stood up against the apes and boars, right? Where San went and fought with the boars
Mm.
because she understood that, right?
Hmm.
So that's why I say I don't think, and you hear Moro, she's got a line in it specifically where she goes, it's like my place is to protect the forest, but I also know that this can't last forever,
Mm.
and if this is basically, it's like if this is where it goes, I will die with the forest. It's
Well, she understands her place in the universe, and that's I think that's
yeah,
why there's a whole lot of nuance there.
hmm
More very wise as a character, even though they didn't frame that wisdom, like they didn't
yeah,
accentuate it and put it on display for the viewer. Knew her place in the forest, knew her place relative to Sun as a wolf mother,
yeah,
knew her place in conflict with Lydia Boshi.
yeah, yeah. 'Cause she was definitely okay to fight Eboshi,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't have imagined Moro going in and attacking Eboshi like San did. Yeah, sure, maybe let San get in there, but she's not going to go in there to have that fight.
Mhm.
That being said, if she had the opportunity, she probably, well, I mean, she would. She was saving the last of her strength to bite that damn woman's head off.
Well, I think
Right?
that it's well, that's where the wisdom comes into play, weighing the upsides and downsides. She definitely could have used her strength to more directly attack.
Yeah.
Well, I guess she technically did, and that's what got her shot in the chest. She
Yeah.
was she was rushing Lady Eboshi at that time, but I think that was more a attack of opportunity while they were doing something. It's not like
Yeah.
she burst into the fortress to attack Lady Eboshi.
Yeah, exactly. And like even the attack at the end, like when she bites off her arm, surprisingly, she doesn't go for the kill shot. I'm not sure if she was trying to go for a kill shot or not. It's always hard to tell, right?
I
She just
think she
bites off her
was.
arm. Yeah. But even at that point, it was, she didn't go on the attack. She was literally there as the last line of defense, which is interesting now that I think about it, because it's actually very similar to what you see with Ashitaka right at the beginning of the film. Literally just made this connection in my head. Because Ashitaka, when the Nago, I think was it, what's the original boar, when he is attacking or going towards his village, he was defensive. He was just literally trying to calm the beast down and direct the beast away from it. And it wasn't until someone was under direct threat that he actually attacked and
Mm.
had no problem doing it, right? So I think there's a little bit of parallel. Is the argument is Ashitaka is essentially more of the pacifist type. I don't think pacifism is the right word. It's how I saw it described in a few places.
I would say incompetent mediator.
Um, I I think the incompetent wasn't intentional.
Mm.
I think he was literally just trying to get people to sit down at the table, just stop the fighting. But when I think pacifist in my head, I think someone who won't fight. This is probably just Gundam Wing messing with my interpretations of pacifism. But I think of someone who won't fight as someone knowing when to fight. That's why I don't quite like
Mm.
Ashitaka being labeled as a pacifist, because he's clearly capable. He just chooses not to, or tries not to. And I saw that very similarly with Moro. So
Okay, I
yeah,
see. I
yeah,
kind of see
yeah.
what you mean.
Mm,
It might have even been one of the reasons why Moro and Ashitaka were had like a bit of conflict towards each other because, like similar archetypes
mhm.
always butt heads.
Yeah,
But even then, like I think that would be a stretch.
yeah. There's a bit of isolationist with the wolf spirits too. Even though she's got a pack, that lone wolf still comes through some and
Yeah,
protect her. And no, I'm protecting my kid. I don't want her to be influenced
was it?
by what the humans are doing.
Well, I mean, in that what the humans were doing would from a like a wolf god point of view, like yeah, what the humans were doing to like the forest and the other animals would probably be considered perverse.
Yeah.
So I could understand her not wanting to be corrupted by it.
Hmm.
Granted, her influences definitely seem to feed into like the cycles of conflict and hate in the film. So like pushing San, like San being very conflicted, almost saying things to reaffirm to herself. I hate Ashitaka because Ashitaka is a human, and I hate all humans because I'm a wolf. Telling herself that to reinforce the things that she's been taught and how she was raised.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I wonder how much of that was like, 'cause of course we don't obviously see her
Yeah, yeah.
being taught, right? Because I don't necessarily think that that's something that Moro would have taught. Like, I don't quite think I see that characterization. Moro, like, especially near the end with the boars and such, it almost was more like she was trying to talk San out of going and fighting, but wasn't going to stop her.
Mm.
She didn't want the wolves involved with the boar attack and when the apes were trying to talk about attacking. So, like, Moro in my mind was very much trying to judge a situation with eyes unclouded by hate. She was actually trying to do that. It was never a hateful thing for her, but when you see the apes where they're going, they came across hateful. The boars definitely were. I don't think San was, but I think San was. San, I think, understood the importance of the forest without the wisdom that Morrow had behind it.
Mm.
So she would jump into the fight, right? And even then, most of the times with most of the fights, it wasn't Morrow, it was the Cubs.
Yeah, but you gotta wonder if like Sen is like that and the Cubs are like that. There has to be some form of influence from the leader. Would I just it just seemed like Sen. I honestly feel like Sen was feeding into these cycles of conflict because she didn't know her place in the world, because she didn't have that wisdom, as you said. Like she was conflicted. She definitely knows that she's a human, but she's also a wolf per se. So
Yeah, yeah, I really do think it's some of that wisdom and experience. Because let's step back and look at Morrow for a second. So she knows what the humans are doing are wrong.
mm,
She will try to stop them, but for the most part, seems to be more defensively.
mm.
She's, as I said, she's not attacking the base, right? She's not attacking Irontown. So, and even then, when she is in the conflict, other than the end, she wasn't leading that attack. She was there because her cubs were there.
Mm.
So
Well, at the
she
end,
knows that.
she wasn't even part of the attack. She was like laying there
Yeah,
dead in the forest spirits pond.
yeah. So she knows what the humans are doing, but she's got the wisdom to not go through. So the teachings to the cubs is, yeah, no, what the humans are doing are wrong, but they don't have that wisdom yet to not act out on what they're doing.
It's
Whereas
just
again, Morrow bides her time. She knows that Eboshi's coming to where the spirits are, even though she's injured. She knows she can save her strength to strike then, and doesn't need to jump in the attack. She knows where Eboshi's going to be.
yeah, the way that it was laid out was so interesting to me. I mean, I know I'm repeating myself, but to see two factions completely at odds, feeling I wouldn't even say feeling like definitely in their own right, neither wrong but neither wholly right. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
ending up in that conflict, and for it to escalate like that.
yeah,
Moro being so wise yet still like wishing some form of violence against Eboshi because of the things that Eboshi's doing, which are affecting the forest negatively, whereas of course Eboshi's doing that all that positively and altruistically for her people.
yeah,
That the juxtaposition of those two of like what is right and what is wrong was just
yeah,
I think it was very well portrayed in this film.
yeah. Oh,
And then
it's complex.
running through it the entire one, there was Ashitaka going, "Oh, forest spirit, my name is Ashitaka, and I plead with you."
Well, in it's interesting because like yeah, it's kind of crazy with Ashitaka like that. But at the same time, you got to remember these forest spirits. We're calling them the forest spirits because that's what it is. But again, these are more akin to gods.
Mm.
So it's not like you see gods all the time.
Yeah,
So he's. I think that's all he feels like he can do, especially considering most of them don't talk to him half the time. Half the time he's interacting with them outside of like Morrow and the wolves is he's trying to literally stop them from destroying a town,
yeah,
right? Like he literally is just needing to plead with them. The forest spirit, like the main forest spirit that doesn't say anything. The boar is literally enraged and he's literally just trying to plead so he doesn't have to you know kill a god, right, or attack a god. And the other people that he would need to plead with, he can talk to. He can actually literally just go and talk to Eboshi.
yeah. I'm still surprised he didn't walk up to the front door. "Oh, Lady Eboshi, my name is Ashitaka, and I plead with you." Sorry, it's
No,
a
wait, I
tone.
actually think he
It's
did. I actually think he did that actually near the end when she was going to kill the forest spirit, or something very similar to that.
yeah. Well, I mean, and when he stopped San and Lady Eboshi from fighting, and
Yeah,
so something about that character in this, and I think it has to do with the projection from the voice acting that just like threw me
yeah.
off. I wouldn't say it pulled me out of it, but I just felt it was goofy and out of place.
I think The other aspect to it with the character, not even talking about the voice acting, is he's that neutral. He's actually supposed to be that neutral mask.
Mm.
He, like
Well, that's yeah.
without him as the character, without him there as a character, we wouldn't actually see the complexities of Eboshi and Moro and San, and then because we literally have no interaction with them, it'd just be weird cuts, and you would lose the ambiguity of the film.
That's probably why it seems so out of place to me. I think you're in the right path with the neutral mask and Ashitaka. It does kind of be a problem when they set up a character that you're supposed to be able to project yourself upon, but like you're not able to do so. It's
Yeah,
it's kind of the feeling I got from it was a like to that feeling when you're watching like a horror movie and you're like, don't go in that room. What are you
yeah,
doing?
yeah,
Like similar to that in
yeah,
a that's not what I do. I can't empathize or project onto this character.
yeah. It's just like I know I said neutral mask because it's the only trope that I can think of.
I think you're right though.
That I'm almost looking for like a tangential trope
Mm.
because I don't think we were necessarily meant to project onto him like you traditionally would with a neutral mask.
Oh, you're talking
You know,
about Cabbage Head, the character where everything has to be explained to or shown in some aspect so that the viewer can learn through them learning.
um,
So in this case, he doesn't know about the Iron Town and he doesn't know about the gods, so his experiences are learning this so that the audience can also learn upon it.
almost. Yeah, I guess that can almost work. I think there's like I think that's closer
Mm.
to what I'm looking for. It's
It's
almost like that and the neutral mask, but he's and narrator. It's almost like he's a narrator without being a narrator.
okay.
He's there moving the story along, so not quite in the way of needing to have everything explained direct. We talked about this kind of in Carol and Tuesday, actually. So he's more like Carol and Tuesday.
Okay.
He's the main character, but
Like he's the
he's not the main
Usagi,
character.
he's the
Yeah, yeah.
he's kind
He's
of
the valley where all the winds are flowing around, not not being the wind itself. I think was a
I
something
like
you said in one
oh
time.
the valley analogy
Yeah,
where he's the valley and the valley has, trees and grass and a wind that blows through. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That's where I'm going with it. He's the Carol and Tuesday or the Usagi or Tenna, which of course is jarring when he's set up very much to be the come across as that protagonist and where you think the neutral mask. So I wonder if that
well what's probably
helps with it.
mixing you up here is saying this about an animated film is kind of funny. Characters in North American storytelling tend to be more one-dimensional,
Mhm.
whereas your neutral mask is definitely your neutral mask, whereas characters in foreign storytelling can often have more complex traits
Yeah,
because they're I mean, I'm not saying we don't get that in North America. I'm just saying that a lot of our big office stuff is, like this is your blonde bombshell and this is your, your dumb strong guy and this is your nerdy guy and like
yeah,
they're not any more complex than that.
yeah,
Where we could have Ashitaka as both the neutral mask and the pseudo narrator and the cabbage head all built into one
yeah,
to essentially like build those tropes into a super trope.
yeah,
I see what you're saying. And that's like, I do think my disconnect with Ashitaka was definitely the fact that they definitely did try to like neutral mask him, but like I failed to project.
yeah, yeah. And that's where I'm wondering if like is it that's just the one of those things gets lost in translation.
It's
Like
possible.
we see the trope and go, oh, this is the neutral mask, so that's how we try to write that translation, as opposed to the I'm calling the trope the valley, as
The
opposed to him
Valley?
being the valley.
The Valley trope? Nice. Okay.
Right?
I like that
Because
because it's close to valet
yeah.
and is something to move the vehicle along.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, I could see that. And then of course some of the disconnect with the like the voice acting in it.
Yeah.
This This one would probably merit a rewatch in the original release
Hmm.
to see how that projection's done. I think if I was able to connect with the Ashitaka character better,
Yeah.
the film would feel more solid to me. Even with the weird, like, Ashitaka loves San for no reason, and I guess that's only the only real big thing that, like, Ghibli'd me.
Yeah.
What I was kind of feeling during this film when it started is originally I was really wondering because I had forgot a lot of the key points. I got to that point. I'm like, oh, am I gonna have to sit through 2 more hours about being lectured about the environment, something that like I'm keenly aware of already.
Yeah.
But I'm watching this to escape from, and I'm almost happy it went to the other dark side of the real world about these cycles of like conflict and hate that everything's
Yeah.
in through. It's just like able to disconnect from that a little bit more. It's the way that the spiral, like you could map it and it would definitely look like a spiral in the way that the story was laid out.
Hmm.
But it kind of all the story kind of all seems to start with the way that the humans treat each other.
Hmm.
So the kingdom was antagonistic to Ashitaka's tribe, exterminated them and forced them to the east.
Yeah.
And then of course abused and took from their people to the point where this small town became the iron making town, and then the downtrodden from society came together to bolster that town and become successful, but that success impacted the environment. They exterminate some boars, the boar attacks Ashitaka's village, comes back, and then it just cycles down and down and down and down and down to the end point where it's like, well, we're cutting off the big god's head at this point. I'm just like, jeepers, getting a little intense, guys. The one scene that stuck out to me that almost seemed like it was gonna break one of those chains, and of course it didn't, is when Ashitaka was laying on the ground and was it Akodo was standing over him, and Ashitaka's like, "No, I killed your kinsman. That was me. Like, can you stop this? Can you like, not attack?" And like you had that moment where you're like, "Oh, is he going to see reason? Like, is this gonna be that final thing that's gonna, stop this cycle that's occurring?" And of course it didn't, but that's the scene that kind of sticks with me
Mm.
just because it was almost the solution. It almost fixed finger quotations things. People were
Well,
Akodo, one of the many that were on the offensive, seemed to almost be taking that step back. Didn't end up managing to do so. But it's interesting that it was the
mm.
beast that would be it. Lady Eboshi wasn't gonna.
I mean, all right. So I've kind of got a couple points. I'm going to try to hopefully remember them here. And so again, Eboshi, I think Eboshi could have stepped back. Eboshi also,
Wait, Eboshi?
hmm?
Akodo?
No, no, because you mentioned Eboshi at the end there. Eboshi could have probably taken the step back because again, she also didn't go on the offensive, much like Morrow.
Hmm.
She was defensive in every way. Everyone was attacking her. So I don't think she was driven by the same motivations that the boars and the apes were.
No, it's not her being on the offensive has nothing to do with her own personal motivations because of the pressure by Jigo. She's
Right.
being her hands being forced. Her character would not have wanted to leave the village to cut off the spirit's head. It's
Yeah.
because she had to.
Yeah. That's what I mean by she could have possibly stepped back,
Mm.
but her hand was forced.
Mhm.
It wasn't her doing it.
Oh yeah, like I
When
wasn't
it-
attacking her like
yeah.
moral standing in the situation
All
because
right.
again, I still think she has altruistic intentions for the most part.
Yeah.
But I
That's
see what you mean.
yeah. And then when it comes to Akoto, I think the reason why Ashitaka couldn't have would have never been able to stop him, even if there was that brief second, because it wasn't about for the Boers at that point. It wasn't about the killing of Nago.
Yeah.
It was about. I mean, I don't even think they knew that Nago was dead. They just knew Nago was changed to a demon and ran off. So it was never about avenging Nago, even if he said it was. That might have been his excuse for it,
Hmm.
right?
I
So,
see what you mean.
and that's where you see that again, that this cycles of hate, and I think it's why, even though the iron shots are what seems to be the catalyst to turn the gods into the demons, is
Well, it's a catalyst for something that's already there.
yeah, it's catalyst for something that's already there, which I think is why you don't see it hitting Morrow again, because that catalyst is because that hate aspect isn't there. It isn't building at the point where Atako's there, even though Ashitaka kind of gets that hint of a second. That was never the cause of his hate. His hate was what the humans had done. Period. Not that Naga was dead.
Well, I think, like, I agree with you, except on the Moro bit, because they did explain that.
Mm.
That was her wisdom that prevented her from turning. Like,
Yeah,
not so much a lack of hate, but more so a she had resigned to herself that she would die,
yeah,
and she wasn't going to hold on. Kind of like the American ghosts, American storytelling ghosts that hold on and won't transition, end up going mad and becoming like poltergeists and things. So, kind of that kind of thought. These gods who are have that catalyst are going to die, but are refusing to do so would then become the cursed god or the demons in this case. I think that's what that transition was about,
okay,
is the way I just perceived it because of that line of her saying, like, I won't become a demon because I've resigned myself to die.
right. But it's when it's. I think way back when. Let's talk about our past. Way back. So I remember you were living up north, and I came out to visit you.
Yes. It was
And
a dramatic time.
yes, it was a very dramatic time. Long story short, I got in an accident, and I remember the way it played through my head was like it's just again that complete resignation to what was going to happen. It was brutal,
Yeah.
and even though I ended up being uninjured, I didn't think that was going to be the case. So it was literally no fear. It was calm because I was just resigned to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Now the second you don't have that certainty is when all of a sudden you can get more into the fearfulness, get more into the hatred of it. So Moro's wisdom of her being resigned tempers that hatred.
Yeah, so you agree
The
with me.
others didn't. Yeah. might have been might have parsed how you said it slightly differently, but that's what I'm saying. She wasn't the hate wasn't there. And again, I don't think the hate was ever there because if it was, I think she would have been more aggressive. I think San had hate, but I don't think Morrow did.
I think that's where a perception of the Moro character differs.
Mm.
I think Moro definitely had the hate, but she was too wise to act upon it. But I definitely see it there. Yeah. Speaking of Akodo, though, I just realized the other scene that really stuck to me also involved Akodo.
Okay.
When he's heading towards the forest spirit and all those hunters in the boar skins come up, and
Oh
he's
my
just
god.
like, yeah, my warriors have returned from the dead for me. And I'm just like, oh my god, like, it's one of the scenes that I remember from having watched this 20 years ago. I mean,
It
that
was
one pulls
haunting
on
and
you, like, it's haunting. It pulls on you emotionally, pulls on you morally. There's so many different threads in your heart that are getting tugged in that scene. This is kind of like Star Wars when Han dies. It's
yeah.
like in that movie, no one showed any emotion except for
Yeah.
the Wookiee when Han dies. It's the most emotional acting in that
Yeah.
entire film. So for me, I mean, it wasn't as bad in this. Like obviously, like Sen and
Yeah.
Moro and Boshi, like they definitely had complex feelings and
Yeah.
emotional changes. But it's just me taking a shot at Star Wars. uh, just the most like powerful scene as far as being attacked on all those aspects.
Yeah. Well, it earned it,
Oh, it did.
right? And it didn't feel tacked on like, a certain solo's death. It was there. It was the culmination of Son trying to protect him and him being blind and already kind of in a blind rage and not and he's already concerned that he's lost all his people and he's just so far gone that he couldn't listen to any type of reason, couldn't trust anyone else around him, just had to believe that it was them raising from the dead, and
Hmm.
like, there was just so much layered there.
It
And
was it
around it.
was very complex and
Yeah.
very impactful.
Yeah.
And I think as far as now, I'm gonna say this separately
Right.
from the original Japanese release, because that would have to be rated on its own with no localization, the original voice actors and actresses. I think that's probably those scenes with Akoto probably propped this up and saved a lot of the movie for me. Gave it that impact, gave it that those feelings. But even with that, I'd probably say I would give this movie 5,732 of 10,000 Kodama spirits.
Oh, I think I ranked this a bit higher than you, and I've already forgotten the exact numbers you gave. So, um, I'd probably give this here more around the go 7,000 7,642 out of 10,000 Kodama spirits.
Okay.
There's so much complexity in the film, and it's one of those ones that this film would have been. I don't think we would have been able to have the same type of discussion if this was a blind watch there. Like, even
Truth.
though it's been a long time since we've watched it, like, this is a film that you kind of have to watch. You kind of multiple times because there's again just so much going on in a relatively simple story. It's so easy to jump on, like I said, just the environmental message, which I think if this was done today by an American studio or if Disney changed it, it probably would have been changed to the hurting the environment is bad, and that would have been the story. And
Yeah, they'd probably
in
cut out. They'd probably cut out the lepers and cut out the brothel girls, and just
yeah,
be like, mean old humans are attacking the spirits or
yeah,
attacking the forest.
yeah,
Um,
and I like the fact that it's refreshing that this wasn't about that. This again goes back to the it's about the balance. About the it's about the cycles of hate and revenge. It just happens to be around. It just happens to be a environmentalist flavor to it, but it's
mm,
not about being an environmentalist film,
true.
which I really appreciate. It's gray and it does it well.
Well, that's where it excels at, being firmly within those gray areas from all sides.
Yeah.
You question the the morality of Sans original parents tossing her to the wolf spirit, and then the wolf, or so the wolf god, and then the wolf god just going, okay, I'm gonna raise it as my own then, and then flowing all the way through to what we discussed about Lady Eboshi's motivations in depth, and that's definitely where it excelled. And I think I could see this being such that if I were to watch this in the original Japanese version, I'd probably give it a closer score. But either way, I still recommend either version to a person. Obviously, if those who like don't have a problem with things like subtitles, I would recommend going with the original Japanese release. And then those who are taken out of the film due to things like subtitles or just not wanting to read to watch a film, I wouldn't say a close second. I definitely feel that they're far apart, but there is a lot in this film that I think anyone that I recommend to it would find something to enjoy.
Yeah. This is definitely one of those movies that I say, like, this should be one of those must-watch movies.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And yeah.
Still, I fear rewatching Nausicaa because Nausicaa was, I wouldn't, back in, back in the olden times, my junior high teacher, homeroom teacher, showed us Nausicaa out of the blue for no reason. I don't think it was my first interaction with anime, but it was definitely one of my earlier interactions. This is ages ago. I was into anime way before it was cool.
Yep.
Back when the nerds would make fun of us. And so it makes me rewatching these Ghibli movies. I guess I hadn't seen Kaguya before, but watching the Ghibli movies makes me worried for how I'm gonna take in Nausicaa
Mm.
because I have a fond memory of it, and I'm really worried that it's not gonna hold up. But I guess we'll see.
Well, I'll say this, that honestly, Nausicaa's one of those ones that I honestly can't remember if I've seen it or not. Like there's several Ghibli films where it's like, I know I've seen you, but I don't quite remember you.
So, some people mix it up with Mononoke.
So Mononoke, and Nausicaa are the two darkest films from Ghibli. And I was reading, I think Mononoke was actually meant to be a spiritual successor
Mm,
to Nausicaa, which is again probably why people get them confused all the time.
okay, yeah, that makes a whole lot of
Right.
sense.
So I can say this with the Ghibli films that we've seen so far, and I know you're a little bit more hit and miss with the Ghibli films you've watched.
A lot more hit and
Um,
miss, maybe.
yeah, um, I think I think the aspects of the fairy tales that are there, I think I wouldn't be worried about going back to Nausicaa because I really do feel these movies have a timeless
Mm,
aspect to them. It's very much Ghibli's. It's what they're known for, right? It's that timeless fairy tale without being a fairy tale, like the fairy tales that we're aware of. So I I'm more interested to watch you as we continue doing the Ghibli series is see if your opinions on some of the films end up changing for the better as we've gone through and kind of break down these story bits a little bit more.
possibly. I'm
Yeah.
mostly interested in seeing what happens when I tricked you into watching Grave of the Fireflies and I don't watch it, and then we just never talk about Grave of the Fireflies again.
Just cry. Just ball up and I know I haven't seen it, but I from what I understand, it'll essentially have me like balled up like a baby crying.
uh, I have seen it, and it was when I was quite young.
Oh.
So I guess with that, this has been Beardy and the Beast Media Club. Join us and Ashley Good of the podcast Ready Set, where we discuss Who Framed Roger Rabbit next week. And of course, if you've had a good time, give us a like, a follow, check us out at beardandthebeast.com, and of course, join the conversation in the comments or during our release premieres. Again, my name is Drew. This is Devin, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Good one.